The best leaders under pressure are not the ones who stay calm. They are the ones who have learned to keep thinking when they're not calm. That's a different skill, and it's one that almost nobody is deliberately or consciously cultivating. Today, we're going into what that skill actually looks like, where it comes from, how you develop it, and what it has to do with trust, decision-making, and the reason some leaders hold a room together when everything is falling apart, whilst others make it worse. Let's get into it. I am Maartje van Krieken, founder of the Chaos Games Consulting and host of the Business Emergency Room, the podcast for leaders navigating volatility, complexity, and organizational chaos. Every episode, I bring you battle-tested frameworks, honest practitioner conversations, and the kind of straight talk that does not make it into most boardrooms. Whether you're in the middle of a crisis, coming out of one, or smart enough to want to avoid the next one, you are in the right place. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm so glad you're tuning in today because I have a fantastic guest joining us today at the Business Emergency Room. His name is Fredrik Sandvall, and he is a trusted investor, an entrepreneur, a best-selling author of 2 books. He's a podcast host himself, he's a strategic advisor to founder-led businesses. What's really interesting and why I'm really keen that Fredrik is here is that he has a background that is very interesting. He spent time in military leadership, in international operations and aid work. He has done lots of board work, investing himself, and plays around significantly in the acquisition and business buying space. And that's where he currently focuses. And so, welcome, Fredrik. Plenty to talk about.
Yeah, too much to so little time. So I'm very happy to take this conversation wherever it might lead us. Of course, for you guys listening all over the world.
Yeah, so Fredrik and I had a little connect before today, and it was very obvious that we are going to need to try and stay a little focused because we could take this everywhere. So I'm going to start with a bit of a big question, Fredrik, because of your background, right? And having worked in areas that are really different from business, but that deal with decision-making under pressure and decision-making in very complex, uncertain, and unfolding situations. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in that space and how you take that perspective back into the work you do today?
Absolutely. So number one, if you think about military or police operations, and you might have something which is really dangerous and you're planning. So one thing you do more than anything, which is 100% transferable to business, is to use intelligence. What do I mean by that? Not to be smart, but actually to try to find out pieces of information so you can analyze, so you can try to see like what is likely to unfold and find out different scenarios. That can absolutely work also in business. And in terms of like how to do operation to me is how to lead people, sometimes in very complex situations, and they might change as we have spoken about previously as well. So same thing there. How to have command and control are typical military words. But if you think about it, if you have a team or if you have an organization, if you've got a task, who would not like to have some element of control? So control sounds fantastic, but if you want too much of it, you're into micromanagement, and that's the biggest warning from control I can share with you. Most people do not want to be micromanaged, so also take that with you. So those are a few thoughts. So number one, try to understand the room before you enter the room by using intelligence. When you enter the room, yes, feel free to try to control it, and also you probably need to manage people around you. And this also comes back to self-mastery as well. You need to manage yourself first before you can manage anyone else. Over to you.
Yeah. So I love all of that. So the beginning with the intelligence, I often talk about the puzzle board, right? If you're in an unfolding situation, it's very important that you go and stand around the imaginary puzzle table and everybody puts at least down the pieces that you have, right? Yeah. Because it also is intelligence to know what you don't know and where your big blind spots are, because those are the ones that you're going to have to much more actively manage, because there every assumption you're going to make is is wrong and it's going to change as you go along. And the question is, does it change so much that you need to do something differently? And yes, the structures that you have in military and the control, I think what's so good about it, what we forget and what we don't do enough of in business is the same as what we do well in disaster response, that it's predefined who is in the room and who makes which decisions, so that there's no time spent on that. And there is some guardrails in place, but that doesn't mean, as you say, that there's micromanagement, right? Because it's basically also at times sending people away to go after a piece of work and say, go figure this out. But this is then the point you come back. And we will be here in command center to then look at what you found and give you new steer. So it's a guided, it's not micromanagement, but it's a guided unfolding and go find and seek and get better intelligence also, really, huh?
And the reality is really like what we can see in the movies, all the way to the president's room. He liked to see what's happening at the spear edge and see what's unfolding real time, and might ultimately command the forces at the very front. But the same thing there. You can't do that in your business. You might want to try to, but you need to trust and delegate as well. We might come back into delegation later, but yeah, I'll park it there for now.
Yeah, and there's a reason that you hired the people you have, right? They have a skill, deep domain knowledge and skill and abilities and connections and current knowledge of situations that you don't have. You cannot have that span of control. That's just not realistic. You started to allude to personal mastery, right? Or at least there is something about in those situations when things really spin out of control and where you are at as a leader. And it is not normal to assume that in all of these situations you will have utter calm and feel like you're totally in control yourself. But there is a line between, being also on edge and being beyond useful to perform in your current situation. Can you talk a little bit what that looks like for you? How should a leader recognize that basically they themselves might need a minute or more than a minute and step back for a second before they act?
Yeah, I just spoke about this with someone the other day, and I took it back to the super basic thing, just keep breathing. It's a good sign, that means you're still alive. And actually deeper breathing can actually relax all of your senses and also get access to the whole mind in a much broader aspect. So we often talk about like the stress cone. The further down you go, the less your senses notice, and the more narrow your focus you will be. So that means your decisions you might take are based on too few piece of information to come back to the puzzle pieces where we started. So another thing is to practice. So one thing we do in the military is to push the comfort zone in exercise scenarios, which means that you have got much more access to what might be much harder when you really need it. And we're all doing that throughout the whole career. So we're moving our comfort zones, assuming that we like to invest in ourselves. But there is a little problem with this. Often, many people are promoted late in their careers, potentially, to what's called the Peter Principle, to the level of your own incompetency. So now you're at the level where you shouldn't be. You should be just one level down where you were really good. But now you might not be the best leader in your current position. I'm saying that partly as a joke, partly because almost all of us can relate to that, to at least a handful of leaders we've seen in our career where they were promoted too much. Think about that for yourself, to climb in a healthy manner as you progress. And same when you grow your business in a not exploding manner either.
Yeah. I love the concept of the Peter Principle, because I think it's so true, right? And basically it's this, indeed, that thought that at some point you reach that point which is really your optimum, and then you get your next promotion and you're not in that space. And sometimes that's time constraint, right? Because where it often also applies is where people have been in the same company a long time, and they've been really successful and built that career. And then the company grows again and they moved on to the next level. And there's something ill at ease then about the fact that they've been around so long, and what the company now needs in this new wave is different. And that ability
Yeah.
to look at it differently. So sometimes the Peter Principle is also the wrong time and place, right? That
Yeah.
promotion would be logical if you would do it in a new environment, because it would remind you totally that this is now a new situation, and that the context of the old company is not the same. And what's getting in your way is that you have all
Yes.
that luggage, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, I like to build a little bit more on this thing here, because when you grow your company, as you grow yourself, it happens in stages, and often what might be a really good leader at like a startup might not be at all a good leader when you're like in a growth phase later, when you need to have systems to be organized, and later when you might be take it all the way to the stock market. Same thing there. You might not be the right public facing founder, because it's very different. So in order to scale up, you need to unlearn traits to learn new things, and almost the only way to do that is to have some kind of external help, someone who's coaching, mentoring, and learning you to take those steps, and also holding up a mirror like, okay, Fredrik, this might not be your ballpark, but if you do ABC, then it might be.
Yeah. Yeah. So can we talk about that a little bit more? Because you kind of hinted at the fact that how you are under stress as a leader, right, and how you deal with that. It's something that you can sort of practice, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's totally true that leaders who've been in more weird situations do better in the next weird situation, right? That's a concept we talk about often in the business emergency room, because effectively resilience comes from training that muscle. So apart from the suggestion that you put forward, like working with a business coach to think about how you operate, how could a leader in business train themselves for more of these high pressure situations and how they operate in those? Is there something we could work on ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, something I observe that many high performance habits leaders, they don't only do this in the boardroom or in their workspace. They often have some other hobbies as well, where they also push the boundaries. And there are many testimonials that, like, if you're more healthy, then you're more likely to be able to have the stamina to also stand up for yourself and to perform. But that's different for different people. But that's something I observe. Really, the people who push a lot in terms of growing their business, I can also meet them in the running track or in competitions as well.
Yeah, there's definitely parallels there, right? But I love that you bring that up, because I personally am a sailor, right, and a skipper, and
Yes.
The times that I really was spending a lot of time on the water, and what I learned from that, and from managing the people dynamics, and also the unfolding situation. I wasn't sailing in the easiest of places. To me, that definitely was helpful in bringing that back to the workplace. There is definitely parallels there in being able to make some uncomfortable decisions in the moment, and also have some difficult conversations at the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Can I connect difficult conversations with sailing and what's happening in the world? Can I share a simple model?
Yes, please.
When I was taught this, it's not my idea. It was called the CIA model. It stands for control, influence, and accept. You can control, hopefully, your own thinking. That's pretty much as far as your level of control really goes.
Yeah.
You can try to influence other people around you, your team, maybe your spouse, and so on and so forth. And then there are many things we should just accept. So on the sea, well, we have to accept the weather and the wind. We have to accept the macro news that we can see. We might have, like, how to accept COVID and how to influence and control what's in our direct vicinity. So that's a little model that can also help you to deal with emergencies, to try to not fix what you can't fix when you're in that mess. Starting with your own thinking. Secondly, try to influence people closest to you, and then expand it. But don't try to fix the weather.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and I had not heard the CIA acronym, but I love that. And I would actually really suggest that it's really helpful in business to actually not do this in your head, but do it on paper, because somehow, because it's not the weather, but it's the business or the markets or whatever, we somehow believe we have more control than we do, right? We all know we can't control the weather. So sometimes it's easier to give in to the fact that you can't. And so being brutally honest with yourself in these situations that are kind of crappy, and you need to make decisions you don't really want to make, and somehow but you're not doing it, or it's not happening, right? Where this stagnation takes place. I think putting this on a whiteboard or on the back of an envelope and actually honestly trying to put things in either of these three categories will make things calmer, because you realize that you probably have tabs open that are in the A category, right? You just have to assume that they are what they are. So actually acknowledging that.
Usually all the news, all financial news are usually in that category normally.
Yeah, but also in the moment, the team that you have, right? Or the organization that you have, your business is not going to turn around overnight into an entirely different organization. Yes, you can hire a fractional or some interim help or whatever, but ultimately you do have what you have in that moment, and your business performance today is also what it is today. And you can influence what it looks like a month from now, but you cannot, paint something that's bright red, dark blue overnight. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You talk a lot about trust. Can we talk specifically about how trust links back to the behavior of the leader and the stress levels that these people have, and how does it link for you to control or not having control?
I think the easiest way to connect it to the emergency situation is to use another simple framework. I call it the emotional bank account. Basically, you can make trust deposits. I'm doing things to help you, which is like a deposit, and you have many of those, because that late night when the business is in a mess, when you might have to ask for that paid or unpaid overtime when it doesn't suit the other person, that's a massive withdrawal. And if you've been building up towards that, there will still be some kind of balance, because you cannot only withdraw all the time. So that means you can't have a business which is always an emergency, because you will be very lonely without staff quite soon when you have emptied all trust bank accounts around you. And that goes also for suppliers and banks and everyone, and even your spouse.
Yeah. So it's an early investment. And to me, trust is directly related to, well, I call it humanity. Because people sometimes say, well, trust is so much easier if you have a very smooth talking or charismatic leader. And I completely disagree. Because I've had definitely in oil and gas, some leaders and managers who, on the people skills are not high performers by general, leadership standards and measurements. But you can be awkward and charming, right? Or you can be awkward and real, and you can be somewhat awkward. But if you are saying something that I know is really nice and not something you would say that frequently, so it's a really well meant, truly meant compliment.
Manipulation is something different.
That's a huge deposit in your bank account. It's more that is it genuine, right? And does it come from you? And
and also the higher levels of trust, the easier it is to do stuff. If that is raising finance to get out of a financial difficulty, that helps. If it's taking a decision, also an uncomfortable one, same thing there, to get the people along with you. The higher the trust, the faster that will be implemented, even if it's uncomfortable. trust can also be contextual. That means that you might trust me in some aspect, and I might trust you to be the best skipper, but you might not be the best in another category. So I might trust you where you got strength, and maybe not so much where you got your biggest weaknesses. So that's another aspect as well. And a high level of trust that you're transferring to your team and to the market and to the world, that attracts more resources your way, one way or another. Not saying that you should do it for that reason, but that's something I observe over and over.
Yeah, so the trust of but you mentioned, right, that you have that account with financial institutions or banks, etc. too, right? Yeah. If you over the performance of your business have been true to your word and have been somewhat transparent when things didn't go well, when things went better, have performed as you said you would. If you're then in peril and it's a little further out of how much in peril you are normally, and you would ask for help, you're more likely to receive that because you've so far proven that you deserve that, right? That you deserve that relationship. Yeah. And I love that you allude to the fact, because it comes back a bit also to the Peter principle, right? That trust can be linked to a specific arena. And sometimes I think we forget that. So I think it's a good reminder that tensions are sometimes really high between people when things have gone wrong, right? And not everybody likes each other still very much. But it's a good lens to look at it for yourself and say, well, if I give this work to this person, right, I might not love their style or I might not like the personality, but do I trust that if I asked them to do this, they would do it well and they could do it? The answer is very often yes. But then we're hesitant to give it to them because by that point we're irritated with the and that's actually a dumb thing because, there is still stuff that they can do very well. And so it's a good, thank you for that. A good reminder. You specifically play in an arena of business where lots goes wrong all the time, right? So you play in the space of mergers and acquisitions and business sales, etc. We can spend a whole other separate episode on that subject. But in the context of what we were talking about today, so in the context of trust and of individuals and how they sit in these emergency situations. Can you talk a little bit about what to you are the main symptoms that you see or that you would be on the lookout for that a merger or a sale needs more work before it can be executed because it's not heading in the right direction? What are some of the symptoms that things are not okay?
Yeah, I mean, statistically, we are seeing a huge transfer of value over the next couple of years. It's already ongoing from one generation to the next. So that means that most of those people who are keen to sell, they would only like to sell to people they like and trust. Very simple. So you need to have some kind of relationship. It's usually not just a number on a check that dictates who will actually buy it. So therefore, if your company or your reputation as a potential buyer is high, you're more likely to have conversations, which means to relationships and greater trust. And often the people who pay the most don't always get the deal because their level of trust for someone to take care of their baby and not throw out all their employees and change the label over the door and everything else, that's a huge trust exercise. So you as a buyer, you can prepare yourself to be more trusted by having your affairs in order. And you as a potential buyer, you can approach this whole exercise with massive level of trust building. And then the transaction is just a very small fraction of it because it's called mergers, which kind of hints that there's something on the other side of the acquisition, which is getting a lot of people to work together. That's also a huge level of trust. Who will trust who will not trust each other. And there is this tug of war. So usually it does not help to hold back information as the seller because it will be a dent in the trust if the buyer finds it later. So that's another aspect where what we spoke about here is critical. Otherwise, you will end up in a business emergency room with surgery with the host of this podcast.
Well, and of course, I'd love to work with you, but I'd love for you to not actually get into that level of trouble. Yeah, and I think that transparency, right? That's also a symptom I see a lot. If you walk into a room and it's already, when there's questions asked, you see at the other side of the table 3 people looking at each other, kind of going, how much are we going to give them? And you're like, oh, are we in that stage? That's never a good sign. And yeah, what I hear you say is you need that trust, because ultimately a selling party will, if they really don't believe that the purchasing party is going to be respectful of what they purchased, that can break the deal, whether you call that emotional nonsense or not. It's going to happen, right? And I think bringing it back to your CIA example, it doesn't mean that the buying party indeed needs to promise to keep the logo above the door, to keep everything as is, because then the business might not be buyable or sellable, right? But there is also a way to have an open conversation about it and say, I appreciate that and I hear you, and then the selling party having some trust, that's saying, okay, I've still pain in my belly that some of these changes are going to happen, but at least I feel that they're going to do that with respect for people and respect for the legacy, right?
Yeah, I love to throw in something else here, which is super important and more relevant today than ever. It's about your level of digital trust, because right now, today, most people don't want to deal with people, which means they will build their trust depending on what they can Google and find.
Yeah, it's the reality, right? And it's the...
Yes.
Yeah, and it comes back to somehow that having conversations about this has, I think, always been difficult. And I think just having AI and having Google and stuff, people want to, self-help, and people want to kind of figure out stuff without having to talk to people. I think we're all guilty of that. Sometimes it's just easier, because then you're not dealing with emotions, you're not dealing with timing, you're not dealing... I mean, humans are amazing, but we're also a little tricky. Okay, Fredrik, you already alluded to your book, one of your books. Can you... if people after listening here want to know more about you, about your books, where to find you, all that stuff, what do they do? Tell us a little more.
Yeah, all right. The best place to find out more about me is just to do what we're doing here. Keep listening to a podcast. It's called Invest in You. It's a podcast which has got a lot of episodes. So treat it like a Swedish smorgasbord, which means you pick what you like. You don't have to take everything, or you will be stuffed. That's one great place to start. I have three books out there. One is about trust, and that's Trust is New Currency. It's many years old. It's an old best-selling Amazon book, and I got 2 new ones for this year. One is called The Abyss of Finance. That is, if you like to understand what is happening with finance behind the curtains. How does empires rise and fall, including currencies, including cryptocurrencies and AI? There are no solutions in that book. It's just like an awareness book, very thin. The next one, if you have a business and you think about selling or buying, option strategy is all around. You can do 3 things. You can keep growing on your own. You can do it with an advisor, or you can do it in partnerships. And that's as simple as that. How to get out your business, or how to get your business bigger by buying another one.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And many of us love more learning, right? So if we can read up in privacy about stuff we might not entirely understand, that's a great tip. I think it fits entirely with the message. Fredrik, before we sign off, can you think of a piece of medicine, right? We're in the business emergency room. What's a piece of medicine that you would prescribe to every leader to consider consuming or using?
Self-medicate by thinking about your health, because that will serve you well whenever it's time for emergency, and also in a daily life, it's better.
Lovely. I think that it's completely full circle that it's coming back to that. Fredrik, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm going to use that CIA right now today to sift through some stuff where I know I'm not focused enough and trying to do things that are not going to be changed. So I'm going to put that to work. Thank you, listener, for tuning in to this episode. I hope to have you back on the next episode of the Business Emergency Room. Thank you and bye for now. Invest in your health so you have the capacity to lead when it matters. That's the prescription. And I would add one thing to it. The CIA model Fredrik shared today is one of the most practically useful frameworks I've come across for exactly that moment, when the pressure is real and you need to think clearly. Control what you can control, influence what you can influence, and accept the rest. You should write these 3 categories down and use them this week. You will be surprised how much energy you have been spending in the wrong column. That is your discharge papers from the ER for today. If this episode was useful, please share it, subscribe, and leave a review. It will keep this emergency room open for business and makes a big difference for podcasts like mine. I am Maartje van Krieken, and this show is my own from start to finish. Produced by me, polished by the brilliant team at Hivecast. And remember, this ER is always open. Till next time.